solid drumming right there. From Case Western Reserve University School of Medicine in Cleveland, Ohio, this is the All Access Med School Admissions Podcast. Hello again, everybody. I'm your host, Christian Essman, and I'm the Senior Director of Admissions and Financial Aid here at Case Western. Welcome, and thank you for sharing some of your time with me here today. Real quick, if you have a question for me or a future guest on the show, then send it to me at allaccess@case.edu. It's that easy, allaccess@case.edu. Also, if you have a suggestion for a school or schools that you'd like to maybe have me feature someday on the show, then send me your wish list. In fact, today's episode came directly from listener suggestions, so it really does work. Also, you'll find in the show notes registration links for some upcoming recruitment fairs, including the AAMC's virtual fair on February 22nd. The list of the schools participating that continues to grow. In fact, a lot of the schools that I featured on this show will be participating, including the Uniformed Services University will be participating in that virtual fair. So since you're a diligent listener of All Access and now you know all the ins and outs of all these schools, you can now ask them even more perceptive and incisive questions at that fair. This is a uniquely informative episode today. I have to tell you that I learned something new in each and every one of these conversations, hopefully just like you. There are so many interesting points in this conversation with Dr. Liotta about military medicine, the benefits of serving in the armed forces, the commitment that's required, some of the unique training opportunities, and a lot more. Most importantly, we talk about the special qualities and characteristics that they value in their admissions process, which I think you're going to want to hear too, because there's a lot of transferable skills and transferable characteristics that I think other med schools are looking for too. With that, let me tell you a little bit about the distinguished career of Dr. Liotta. It's fascinating to me. Navy Commander Dr. Robert Liotta is the Associate Dean for Recruitment and Admissions in the School of Medicine at the Uniformed Services University. Dr. Liotta earned a BS degree in chemistry from the United States Naval Academy in 1997, where he graduated second in his class. A USU alum, he was elected to the AOA Honor Society in his junior year, and after completing a general surgery internship at the National Naval Medical Center, Bethesda, Maryland, he was selected for additional training at the Naval Aerospace Medical Institute in Pensacola, Florida, where he earned the designation as a naval flight surgeon in 2003. In 2005, he began a diagnostic radiology residency at the National Naval Medical Center in Bethesda, followed by fellowship training in cardiothoracic radiology at the University of Michigan. Following that, Commander Liotta was assigned to the Walter Reed National Military Medical Center as the Chief of Cardiothoracic Radiology, where he helped establish the Department of Defense's first lung cancer screening program. From 2014 to 2015, he served as the Chief of the Diagnostic Radiology Service, Navy Interim Director, and Assistant Chief of Graduate Medical Education. Prior to joining USU in his current role, he serves as the Director of Education, Training, and Research at Walter Reed. Over the course of his military medical career, he has served operational assignments with the Marine Tactical Electronic Warfare Squadron 1, based out of Cherry Point, North Carolina, where he deployed to Iwakuni, Japan, with operational detachments to Guam and Osan, Korea. From December 2004 to June 2005, he served as the medical department head for the Marine Unmanned Vehicle Squadron 2, where he was deployed to Al-Taqadum, Iraq, in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom. Let all that sink in for a second. Wow, that's impressive. Best of all, he's from Cleveland. Okay, so now that we all feel like total underachievers, here's a snapshot description of USU. The Uniformed Services University of the Health Sciences F. Edward Hebert School of Medicine is located in Bethesda, Maryland. It's located just about northwest of Washington, D.C. Many of you know Bethesda is also famously home to the National Institutes of Health and the Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. Created by public law in 1972, the Uniformed Services University of the health sciences was founded to prepare men and women of diverse backgrounds for careers as health professionals in the military and public health service. The F. Edward Hebert School of Medicine provides a comprehensive education to select individuals who demonstrate potential for and commitment to careers as medical officers caring for the service members, retirees, and families that have served our nation. Their underlying mission is to educate, train, and comprehensively prepare uniformed services health professionals, scientists, and leaders to support the military and public health systems, the national security and national defense strategies of the United States, and the readiness of our uniformed services. Due to commissioning requirements, all USU students must be U.S. citizens by matriculation date. All accepted suits must be at least 18 years old at the time of matriculation, but no older than 36 as of June 30th in that matriculation year. Applicants who are older than 36 by June 30th in that year of matriculation will have to request an age waiver prior to an offer. We're going to talk about what commissioning means with Dr. Liotta and what commissioning requirements look like, so stay tuned for that. The F. Edward Hebert School of Medicine is a public institution that can only accept applications from U.S. citizens and does not give preference to in-state versus out-of-state applicants. For the entering class of 2019, the medical school received approximately 3,096 applications and interviewed 543 applicants for a class size of 171. 50% of their 2019 entering class were comprised of women, 15% self-identified as underrepresented in medicine, and 15% are first-generation college graduates. Dr. Liotta is an amazing guest, and I think you're really going to hear his genuine enthusiasm and passion for what he does ooze through your ears. So I know I did. I really enjoyed this. So are you ready? Here we go. Well, Dr. Liotta, good morning, sir. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's an absolute pleasure to have you as a guest. Good to have you here.
Oh, thanks so much, Christian. I do appreciate having this opportunity to get to talk to you this morning.
Well, I'm thrilled. I mean, as I told you before we hit record here, that I've been doing my homework about your medical school, and there's some fascinating aspects of it that I have a ton of questions for you. But before we get into that, I want to find out, I mean, you have a very distinguished career in the military. So tell us how you wound up becoming the Dean of Admissions and Recruitment at USU.
Right. Well, that's a great question. And I think when I started my medical journey, I would never have thought that I would have been in this position, for sure. What I can really say is that I have had so many opportunities in the military with my medical career and with the military career. I've had so many opportunities and doors open for me that I've sort of had this amazing career. The last 18 years serving in the Navy has been just a great adventure and a great joy. And I've got to do it. I've got to serve while doing what my passion is, which is medicine. And clear and simple, I have had a great time practicing medicine in the military, and then going along on the adventures that were opened up to me. And really, to be honest, I'm at 18 years of service, started at the Naval Academy, and then went on to the Uniformed Services University, where I got to go to medical school. And afterwards, really had a blast of a time. And we can touch on some of these later, but I got to be a flight surgeon, which is a regular flight doctor, for a few years after finishing my surgical internship. And at that point, I was debating between being a radiologist and an ear, nose, and throat surgeon. And it was really during my internship that I solidified, no, interventional radiology is those type of procedures were drawing me to radiology. And the Navy let me do a lot of fun things, but I took a little detour in between internship and residency to do flight surgery, which hands down the best 3 years of my career in medicine and in the military. And then went on to residency in radiology, did a fellowship in cardiothoracic radiology at the University of Michigan, and then came back and really got to teach here for the last 6 years at Walter Reed with our residents in our training program, and led the cardiothoracic division. And it was at that point when I saw saw an email that said, "Hey, we're looking for applications for the dean at the Uniformed Services University, the dean of admissions." And I looked at that and I told my wife, I said, "You know what? This job sounds really fun. I'm going to get to recruit and talk about what I've gotten to do these last 18 years, and be a part of shaping our next cadre of military physicians." And it was really an important job. And so I'm getting to come back to my alma mater. That's sort of how we got here.
Yeah.
And I just took over in June.
That's got to feel special to know that you're part of the process of bringing in more graduates and students to the school that you went to. And that's got to be a special feeling.
Right.
Wow.
No, I mean, I had some great opportunities here, and really, I think getting into this job, one of the unsung fruits or the things I didn't expect was that the fact that I get to come over to the university, meet with students and applicants, on interview day, out on the road, talking to them. When I get to go back to the hospital, I come back and talk to the residents, and I just say, "Hey, we are so lucky and privileged to get to do this," and really getting to talk to those students, really just it's up the game on my medical side. And if anything, I tell people, having this opportunity even helps with burnout. I mean, it's just it's a great privilege.
Yeah, it's got to be reinvigorating because you're not in the daily grind of doing in the hospital every day to get out and kind of meet these young people that are inspiring and maybe a little idealistic. Right. That's great. So what have you found? What have you found most rewarding about this? The stuff you get to do in admissions. What do you like most about it now that you've been doing it for a little bit?
Yeah. So you know what? Really, the most rewards are when I get to read applications and believe me, I mean, I'm not an emotional guy, but I've read personal statements. I've read essays that bring tears to my eyes, or the journeys that I've seen. I am just literally floored by what some of these applicants have been able to accomplish in their short lifespans. It's been amazing, and then to be able to meet them and then to actually bring them into our school and to see them, they're going to even keep running with that, or I'm bringing them into our system where we get to have them a part of it. Our patients will benefit from that. Our service members will pay, and our whole country benefits from that.
Yeah, so, absolutely. And there's some students that have really some amazing life experiences. And they're, like you said, their short lives. It's incredible.
Yeah. And I think also the other thing I like because of this job is the mentoring. So, and that's been a great fruit. So that not only our current students, but then the students, once I go through the whole admissions process with them, still keep in touch with them, have them over for dinner, meet with them. That's been a joy. And I think that's part of that burnout. It's like, I get to do that. And then I get to go back to the hospital. And it's a great mix.
That's so cool.
I couldn't be more thankful for that.
So cool. Hey, you sound like a busy guy. What do you do for fun? I mean, you're in a great city. What do you get to do for fun?
Well, and this is, something. So I've been married 13 years. And when I met my wife, on the second date, I knew I wanted to marry her. And we have, and we knew we wanted to have a big family. So we have 6 kids. My oldest is 11. And the youngest, we were surprised with twins. So they're almost 2 years old. And so I am a family man. I mean, literally, first and foremost, my marriage, and then my vocation is my marriage, and then that family. And so a lot of my free time, almost all of it, is doing things with the family. And one of the things we love to do, I joined the Navy for a reason. I love the water. And so one of my dreams as a kid was I'm going to have a boat one day. And so we have a 21-foot boat, a bow rider. It's just a little speedboat, 21 foot. Fits 12 people on board, so it fits our whole family and another family if they want to come with us. And we go out, and because we're right in D.C., and because we're military, I have a really cheap slip right across from National Airport. It's called Joint Base Anacostia. It's where the president's helicopters land. Where they keep them on the base there when they stage them there. And so we keep our boat there, and on Sundays after church, head over to the boat and go boating all day afternoon. And I pinch myself because we go down the Potomac and we drive by Mount Vernon every Sunday, and we'll water ski and tube in front of some amazing spots. Or when we bring people out with us and we go up to Georgetown and we're driving by the Lincoln Memorial or the Washington Monument, just going, I can't believe we get to do this. So
that is awesome.
Have a great time.
Like so much fun. Oh, that's so
it is a gift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. Wow. Hey, before we go on, we said USU, and we were talking beforehand. Like, there's some name branding going on.
Right.
How should people refer to your med school? Is it USU? You said Yusuf. Explain.
Yes. No, great, Christian. Great question. In fact, students always ask it. I think even alumni and students always ask that question. There's no wrong way to do it. When I was here, the school first started, it started in the 70s, but that when I was here in the 90s, we called it USIS. And that's a perfectly good way to call the school. That's the acronym from the Uniformed Services University of the Health Sciences. And then now over time, just because of branding's a little easier and it's easier to say, people will say USU or the Uniformed Services University. And so that's perfectly fine as well. You'll hear it. Alumni will say it all different ways. And right now, the big brand is the USU. And so I think that's what I use now when I'm on the recruiting trail. Hey, welcome to USU. We're the F. Edward Hebert School of Medicine, but it's easier to just say we're USU.
Okay. So. All right. So thanks for telling me that. I'll try to use that as we keep going along here. So, hey, let's dive into some of those curricular highlights about your medical school. And in particular, they went through some redesign or some recrafting a few years ago. And to the curriculum now is called the Molecules to Military Medicine, correct?
Correct. So exactly.
When and you go, go tell me about that.
So that transition occurred in 2012, that we redesigned the curriculum. We used to have the standard medical school curriculum where you'd have the 2 years of basic sciences and then 2 years of clinical rotations for the 4-year program. And in 2012, we went to a systems-based curriculum for the pre-clerkship timeframe. And that's 16 months now. Instead of the 2 years of preclinical, we have the 16 months of the preclinical phase. And our students, from day one, they get exposed to patients. They'll start doing histories and physical exams on day 2, learning to take a history and physical on day 2, and we'll intertwine through that curriculum in that pre-clerkship phase. They are going to start with foundations, and then they go through a series of, they go to the musculoskeletal system. We're in the cardiopulmonary renal now. They'll hit all of those musculoskeletal, or all of those systems, and what they'll learn, instead of just learning basic physiology, basic histology, basic gross anatomy, they will learn them in the systems. And so in the musculoskeletal system, they're going to learn the histology of the muscles, the anatomy of the muscles. Then they'll learn the physiology, the pathophysiology, any pharmacology or any management. And it's all in one system. And they will hit all the systems like that. And the change with that, though, is also, and this was a big change where we were a little worried about, is that usually after those first 2 years, you take step 1 of USMLE. But we decided to actually have our students take the USMLE after they do their core clerkships. And so they end up doing their step 1 exam in their 3rd year, right in the middle of their 3rd year. In fact, our 3rd year medical students now had done all of their core clerkships, and now they have a 6-week period where they're studying for step 1. And so that was a big change. And what we found was that our students are doing better on our average USMLE step scores for step 1 have all been higher than before when we had the old curriculum. And so our students are doing really well with it. We're still pushing innovations in the curriculum. So what's nice about it, this is one of the things we're working on, is using cell phones so that they can weekly get, yes, they may be on their surgical rotation, but they're getting some basic science questions that may get sent to them over on that. They'll get for example, they may be on, general surgery, but they will get a few basic science questions on anatomy that they'll get sent to them to prep them, to keep them in the mode of the preclinical phase where they're meshing it all together. And really cool. The thought is that you're building the clinical with the preclinical knowledge base, but seeing how they intertwine. And I think the reason why our students are doing better is because they're retaining it better. They're having a framework where they're able to, it's rather than memorizing minutia. I mean, for me, embryology was one of the hardest classes I took here, and it was just all memorizing. It's like week 6, what happens in the liver? Week 7, what happens? But now they're getting the clinical relevance of it. A perfect example of that is me as a radiologist. when do we see the heartbeat, and what is the clinical significance of that when I'm doing an ultrasound in the ER for someone who has, for a woman who's pregnant who is having vaginal bleeding. And I want to know, well, what week are we at since their last menstrual period, and what am I seeing? And if I don't see a heartbeat at week 5, then I'm concerned that there could be an early pregnancy failure. But we're able to give that clinical input with, that's why you need to know that embryology. That's why you need to know these dates and the different things when things happen in the body. So
tell me, you're a product of the quote unquote older curriculum, and now you see the benefits of the current curriculum. What are you taking away from seeing these students? How are they benefiting from that? Are you just kind of mentioned they're seeing the clinical curriculum kind of intertwined with the basic science? What else are you seeing that compared to your experience?
Right. Yeah, no, great question on that. So the big thing is, I teach in the cardiopulmonary renal section, we actually have a whole radiology module, and we do small group sessions, two big small group sessions with them, where we actually teach them how to read a chest radiograph. And then we do cases, case scenarios related to cardiac physiology, because they're really all in the chest. So we can look at the heart, we can talk about the lungs. It really fits right in with their module. And what I've noticed is we have first years understanding bread and butter clinical scenarios and bread and butter clinical knowledge of, what do I do when there's a pneumothorax? How do I treat that? They're able to tell me those management decisions now as first years, where I would have had no clue. They wouldn't even have been on the radar for me. And what I really see is that, yes, they're learning the physiology, they're learning the anatomy, but now they're already getting the doses of the clinical side, the management, the diagnosis. They're already giving me differentials. When they look at that chest radiograph, they're practicing differentials. We're getting them to think like a physician early on, very early on. And the first time I did this with the new curriculum, I was like, you guys know more than I knew as a third year. I mean, I didn't even know this as a third year because of the way it's just getting intertwined, because I'm doing one small group session with them, but they're already getting that. They're already getting to think about differentials early on because of that systems-based approach that they're getting to see that.
Is the first 16 months, the way it's set up, is it a mixture of lectures, small groups, and things like that? What's that look like? The didactic portion of the 16 weeks or 16 months? Sorry.
Right. The way it looks is that there are lectures, and so we have a mixture of lectures. We have then small group sessions, and then we have labs, and also seminars intertwined in there with it. And all of the lectures are not mandatory, so all the lectures are taped, and so the students have the ability to either go to lecture or watch them at home, or watch them. A lot of them watch them fast, fast speed, and they use them how they see fit. A lot of students go to class because they want to be in class, and they get a lot of benefit of seeing being there with the instructor. So those are optional. But any lab or any small group, so we have what are called fire teams. They're groups of 4, and when you have a mandatory lab, or you're going to the gross anatomy lab, the anatomic teaching lab, any mandatory events are usually with your group, with your fire team. And then we also have what are called fire families, where there are 2 fire teams. So it's usually about 8 students, and that may be a bigger group setting. For example, when they're learning to take histories from patients, they will rotate at the hospital, and there will be a fire family of 8 of them that will be there, and we'll go walking around to live patients and start practicing interview skills with patients there.
And so, just to be clear, they stay with their same fire team and fire family for those first 16 months.
Exactly. Those first 16 months, that's what they stay with. Yes, exactly.
Okay, that's
cool.
What
we try to do is, even those fire families, we try to even it up so that there's 1 Army, 1 Navy, 1 Air Force, and sometimes either 2 Army or one of our public health service students in there. So they're getting all the services, a good feel for that.
That interdisciplinary aspect
approach.
Of it. Yeah. Oh, that's great.
Exactly.
You mentioned that this is unique. I mean, because you've heard this too. Like, students always ask us, when do I get to see patients? And you're saying the second day?
The second day they are getting introduced. They'll get their first lectures on how to take a history and physical. And then using our sim lab, we have our simulation center. So that's where they'll start, learning basic exam skills throughout that whole foundations. It's our foundations module. They'll get that.
Well, we're talking about the fire family and making it bigger. Seems like a community aspect there. One thing I was reading about and doing my homework was the well-being program. And it sounds like a student-led or student-organized thing. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Right. So our Office of Student Affairs is right. If you come and visit the university, we have the student lockers, the student lounge. They have the foosball tables, the video games, the tables to eat, and the refrigerators, microwaves, and everything. Right in there is our Office of Student Affairs. And so their team, the whole office is almost like when I was here, and it's still the same, is like that's home base. It's like there's cookies in that office, there's candy in that office. It's just it's a home field. The secretaries and the administrative assistants that work there were like motherly figures to me. And really, and any question. In fact, it was the only number I remembered when I left. It was I would call Student Affairs, and if I need to get directed somewhere or find out information, they would direct me. And so that really is our home base here. And really, the Student Affairs that there are guidance counselors. They're giving you guidance on, or if you have academic difficulty, or you have an issue, or if there's something going on in your family, or you're struggling. That's home base, and they really help direct that, and then work with the rest of the faculty on helping to get you the right mentors or get you into the right groups for anything that you need. On top of that, we also have a military work dog, Lieutenant Commander Shetland, and so he's and so literally Shetland is always in the student area there. He lives with one of our professors who helps really do the well-being aspect of our curriculum. It's their dog now that was donated. And so Shetland is not only helps with the well-being of the students, just having the dogs present, but also it teaches us how our service members are using service dogs, how our patients are using them. So it's a dual approach. It's not just Shetland's for our students, but it's also showing us what service dogs can do and how patients use them as well.
That's fantastic. That is so cool. I'm a big fan of dogs. I love dogs. So hearing that warms my heart. One thing I read about is that in the program, there are 700 hours of military medicine training. Is that in the first 16 months too? And if so, what's that look like? What does that mean?
Yeah, so that curriculum, that is intertwined into all your medicine. So you're going to get trained just like at any other medical school. You're going to be trained to be a phenomenal physician. On top of that, we are going to give you extra information about yourself, about being a leader. And so it's all built into the curriculum, but there will be there is a seminar session we're going to talk about leadership and leadership styles. And that, our students will then take the Myers-Briggs type indicator, or they're going to, so part of that military extra is leadership. And that's a huge part of it is like going, well, what are my strengths as a leader? When do I need to be authoritative? Am I good at being authoritative, or am I better at being democratic? Or what are the different styles that you can have? What are my strengths? And then what are ways to use those? And we really have, really our faculty, alumni, all the experiences they have come in and talk about that going, hey, here's what had happened when I had to lead, I had to lead a battalion aid station when we went to Iraq or Afghanistan. Here's what were some of the leadership challenges I had. So a big part of that extra part is officership and leading is intertwined in there. At the same time, we will teach basic military contingency operations and military medicine, which not all physicians do. This is, and you may, even when you graduate, never have to do this, but you are going to be trained on basic first aid, buddy aid. They will become second nature to you. So these are things like, what do we do for combat casualty care? What do our medics and our corpsmen who are on the front lines do? How do we put on tourniquets? How do we initially stabilize patients for flight or to get them back to where our physicians are going to be operating? So you're going to learn, they learn all about that. They learn about the rules of war in the fact that, well, who do we treat? Are there rules on if I have to make a decision between a U.S. service member or an insurgent? How does the physician make the decision? And we follow the rules of the Hippocratic Oath. Who needs the immediate life-saving maneuver, that's who we're going to treat. It doesn't matter if they're the enemy or not.
Wow.
But our students are going to learn that because they may be in those situations where they have to make those decisions. Or what can a military physician do if they find themselves in a combat situation? Not that all doctors are going to be fighting, but that what are the rules of that? And because as physicians, we are not, by the Geneva Conventions, are not war fighters. We carry weapons for the sole purpose of defending our patients, but not to attack or to be on the offensive. And so, and these are all things that they're going to get intertwined. The culmination of that curriculum, which we may talk about later, is Operation Bushmaster, which puts all those skills into place, and that where our seniors, our fourth-year students, really get to use those skills and get graded. When we do that military contingency medicine, that final capstone process. But that is a buildup. That is the end of it. We have other operations and other activities throughout the curriculum that build up to that.
Let's talk about that Operation Bushmaster. Is that done in the Bethesda area, or do they go somewhere else?
Right. So we go up to Pennsylvania. It's about 2.5 hours away at Fort Indiantown Gap. It's actually a Army Reserve post. Really beautiful country up there. Great, huge, wide open area that for 2 weeks, the whole school puts really everything on pause, and all our faculty go up there and support this. Faculty from around all the nation, civilian faculty who are retired or just associated with the military at some part, go up there and teach. And what we do is our students will, our fourth years and our first years both go up there, and they get training. Wow. They get extra training preparing for it. And then the exercises is about, it's a week long. I think it's 5 days. I got there on Saturday and I left on Wednesday. And it's basically our fourth years are in a platoon, and they have a notional scenario that they are running a battalion aid station, and they go through scenarios constantly for those 5 days where they will see 70 to 80 mass casualties, war-related activities that may happen to them if they were on a base, or if they were in a country where our service members were fighting, or where there was conflict going on, and they would be exposed to the different things that will happen. And what I can tell you is at the end of that, we see our students start and they struggle in the beginning, and after those first 4 or 5 days, it is amazing how fluid they are at setting up a battalion aid station, delivering care, and being able to respond to mass casualties where they may have 40 or 50 patients come in all at once. And so it's beautiful to see, and it's not easy. They're cold, they're hungry, they're tired, they're outside because you're out there the whole time. They don't come in, they're not sleeping in a hotel or a barracks, they're sleeping out in a tent. Out in that field out there. And it's really amazing. And what I can say from my own personal experiences, I did not enjoy Bushmaster, and I probably didn't even recognize how good it was until 4 years later when I was in a mass casualty situation in Iraq. And I will tell you that it was imprinted on me. I remember being nervous when that first mass casualty came, and when I ultimately responded to it, all the nerves went away as soon as I walked into that tent hospital. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is exactly the same as my training. And I was just went to work, and we worked all night long. And I think I said, you know what, having that imprinted on me, hopefully our students never have to use it, but if they need to use it, which in whatever setting, it's imprinted on them, and they will have the skills they need to successfully navigate that.
That's just incredible. Wow. Speaking of clinically related things, when you come to the third year, the clerkships, from what I read, students aren't just staying in Maryland. They have opportunities to go to other states to do some third year clinical rotations. Tell us how that works.
Right. So what we do is we have really 5 core sites. And when you think about the military, like our school, our closest teaching hospital is here at Walter Reed. However, our military is all over the United States. And so we have residencies and large academic teaching hospitals throughout the country. And so our big teaching hospitals in San Diego, in Portsmouth, Virginia, in Hawaii, in the Seattle area, and then also our big family practice medicine teaching programs, our residency programs, all our students get to rotate at those areas. Oh, and also in San Antonio, where we have Brooke Army Medical Center and the burn unit, they have the opportunities to do their core clerkships at any of those hospitals where they actually have a lottery system and they put in their preferences, and based off of their lottery numbers and preferences, students will get to go to certain areas, and it's to do their training for those clerkships. Those clerkships go, we have 3 big blocks, and each block is 16 weeks. And in those blocks, they'll stay in one site. So you may go down to San Antonio and you may do your surgery, your general surgery, and your surgical subspecialties together with OBGYN, in that 16-week block. And so it's really neat. I think the big positive of it is, one, so people, with families or don't want to travel as much, end up staying closer to home at Walter Reed in our local training areas. But those, who want the adventure of it to go see different hospitals or different areas of the country, it's not bad to do psychiatry in Hawaii for the summer, So there's, there's different things that, different reasons for people to pick different things. And what I think is really great about it, and I think a strength for our program, is that you get to see all these different hospitals. So you're already getting to audition or see, hey, you know what? I'm in the Army, and Triple Army Medical Center is, a great training program. I'm going to go check it out. You know what? I loved my clerkship down there. Now I got to meet people. Now I'm going to try to go back there and audition and try to match for my residency down there. Yeah. And so you're really getting a chance to see these different areas. For me, when I was interested in surgery, I knew we had our Brooke Army Medical Center had the burn unit, and it's a level 1 trauma center right in the city of San Antonio. And I was like, you know what, I really want to know if I want to do trauma surgery. And so I had a really high number, and I said, I'm going to do surgery down in San Antonio. And it was awesome. And even though it's an Army hospital, and I'm Navy, it was just tremendous training. I just really had a blast down there. Really met all my expectations, really helped me decide if that's really what I wanted to do.
Oh, wow. What I hear too is there's 16-week-long blocks. I mean, that's 4 months that you're able to stay in that area. And it's not like you're just coming in for a couple of weeks or 4 weeks, and then you get used to the hospital, then you're gone. I mean, 4 months is a long time to get there, get settled in, figure out where the good elevators are, where the bad elevators are, and how the EMR works and that kind of thing. So, and people get to know you get to know them. So it sounds like, like you said, a great opportunity to do some kind of quote unquote auditioning. Thinking about future residency opportunities. That's great. I think it really helps our students, use of students in the military match get no preference, but I think they do very well because they have a great reputation among the military hospitals. They know that they're good medical students. They know that they're well trained. And 2, because of that personal effect, they may be on surgery 1 month and now they're on internal medicine at the same hospital, and they're interacting with those teams, those people. They know them. And that's it's very strong. Yeah, you can't get away from that. I mean, that's a clear benefit. That's awesome. One thing that stood out to me was in the literature that I've read about USU is that worldwide electives are available in clerkships. That I don't see that in a lot of other medical school opportunities. Right. What's that mean? What's that look like? 'Cause that sounds exciting.
Yeah. That is. So what happens is we have our core clerkships, which are all in the United States during the 3rd year, or really part of the 2nd year and the 3rd year. Once you get through your core clerkships, you're able to do advanced clinical rotations. And really the reason why there are really opportunities to go anywhere around the world is because our military has a presence all over the world. And so we have bases everywhere. We also have labs all over in South America, Egypt, Cambodia, Thailand, research labs. Really, you can take advantage of those assets in the military to actually go and then work there. And so on top of that, we also have our humanitarian assistance missions that are going on and our hospital ships. And so the students get to participate when those ships go out. those ships may go, for example, the USS Comfort goes down to South America. And so they may be gone for 6 months, but they're going to hit ports. They're going to go to Panama, Honduras, Peru. And our students will then get to fly out to the ship and be with them for those missions, for those 4-week missions, whichever countries they're in. And so they have an opportunity to do that. Not everyone does it, but it depends on your interests. And then you actually then go put in and make it happen during your 4th year as you're building and filling your electives for that year.
Oh, that sounds really, like I said, really unique. I mean, that not a lot of schools are doing that or have the opportunity to do that stuff. That's why I wanted to ask you that. Hey,
and then
go ahead.
Yeah. Also, just like we have also courses. So we have a tropical medicine course that we put on here that you're already getting it in your curriculum, but it's also put on over the summer for the whole military and people to come. And you have opportunities to take that class, or you become an expert on parasites and a lot of endemic diseases that we don't have. We don't typically see in the United States. Then what you do is get to go on a mission trip where you get to use those skills and treat those diseases for 1 to 2 weeks after the training. And so our students also have that ability to go to Bolivia or to go down to South America to actually use those skills on real patients.
Oh, wow. Okay. I totally had a ton of questions about your school. Okay. I have a couple more about curricular questions. Then we'll kind of segue into a couple of things. One other thing I want to ask you is I saw that you have a new capstone project. So is that do all students have to do the capstone project? Is it a research requirement now for medical students there?
Right. So the capstone is not a requirement, but roughly about 60 to 70% of the students in each class end up doing a capstone project. And really, it can be research-based, but also it could be quality improvement, process improvement-based. Students have the leeway to really do whatever they want with it. I know we had a student going and visiting all of the mountain warfare training centers and the cold weather training centers to just look at how we're training and how our medical assets are adapting to that.
Oh, interesting.
So there's lots of different things. I know we had another student working on a project where her project is up on the International Space Station now. Because we do have a lot of we do have a lot of interesting research, a lot of different opportunities involved. But yes, it is. It's based, and the way the capstone works is that you're given 3 months in your 4th year to finish it. But you can be doing it, just purely on our location. If you have an interest, you can start doing that or putting that work in from day one. We don't let people start research during foundations, which is the 4 weeks. But once you're done with foundations, then you can start doing. And if you you want to work on a project with, here at the university at Walter Reed, or even across the street at the National Institutes of Health, there are plenty of opportunities. A lot of our faculty work at all sites. And so there are numerous opportunities to take advantage. And what's nice about that is, not only doing that capstone throughout medical school, but if you stay in the area for your residency, you can continue working that and on to fellowship or whatever. So there are a lot of opportunities.
Oh, wow. Okay. That sounds so cool. And last thing, do students have time for fun? I mean, I think somebody who might be listening saying, gosh, this sounds kind of intense. But do students have time for fun to do things that they want to do?
Yes, they really do. And in fact, it's, obviously you're busy about every 4 weeks.
Sure.
Once you start, you're going to be studying for exams about every 4 weeks. But our students have time, a lot of them have families and other commitments. They do have time. And I think it's probably similar to all medical schools. You finish those exams and then you have an easier weekend at different points in that curriculum. And what I think is nice, really, which, you have those points to have fun, but you're living in DC and you are also you're not a pauper. You're making money to go to school. And I think so our students, when they have a free time, they're not worried about the money to say, hey, I want to go take this trip, or I want to go do this activity. They have the money and the resources to do it. And so I think really that does help. And it really does help knowing that. I think another little secret that not a lot of people know about is once you join the military, you can fly for free on military flights They're called MAC flights. And so our students, and some of them will do this over Christmas break, say, you know what, we got 3 weeks, let's go to Germany and you can go there for free. And so because you just wait standby, the problem is you might not have a flight back and you got to have a window to wait 2 or 3 days if you got to stay standby. But it is a wonderful way to travel, to take advantage of that as well.
My God. So. Well, hey, let's talk about those benefits. Another unique thing about your medical school, and this is not something I usually talk about with other medical schools, of the benefits of that particular school, but this is very unique. And so what are some of those benefits of going to medical school at USU?
Right. So, first and foremost, free education. So tuition free, everything is paid for. Books, everything you need is paid for. On top of that, you will be commissioned as an officer, and so you command a salary. And so you will be commissioned as an O1, which is either an ensign in the Navy or a second lieutenant in the Air Force or the Army, or also in the public health service. And what that entails is that you have a salary, and so and you get a stipend, and so you get a housing stipend, a housing allowance, a food allowance, and then your salary. And so that comes to about $65,000 a year. And on top of that, you're in our system. So you're not paying for medical care. So if you have a family or dependents or your spouse, they are all covered under our medical system. And so it's literally free healthcare. You are, the whole family's covered. You become a dependent, and you have all healthcare taken care of while you're here as well, for your entire career. And if you end up doing a 20-year career, you'll have that healthcare for the rest of your life with it. So those are some great benefits. Those I think are easy to see the benefits with that. And then you're going to then be a part of our country. You're going to be a part of the military apparatus, which is a great privilege and a great honor. And I think that is the privilege of that is it's a great adventure. You will pinch yourself thinking, oh my goodness, my country trusts me to do this. And that, examples of that are, even just being in this area, I think, the people you get to take care of, our, here at Walter Reed, Congress, the Supreme Court justices, our president, our executive branch of government trusts their healthcare here. And so you may be called on to help them. And so there's a great trust and a great honor in getting not only to take care of those individuals, but at the same time taking care of that private first class or that seaman that has been injured, that you get to take care of, that really put their life on the line for all of us back here.
So to recap, tuition, food, housing that's not taxable.
Tax-free.
Yeah. And a salary as a first-year medical student. And the hidden benefits of sometimes some free travel for people to hear that, I wanted to emphasize that, because that is really important for listeners to hear that, and I think sometimes if students are worried about how am I going to finance medical school, or how am I going to pay off, mountains of debt down the road, I think it's important to also consider too, what's the obligation then after? So if you commit to USU and you are afforded these wonderful benefits, then what's the obligation of the student to then their career or their obligation back to the military?
Right. So once you graduate, you're going to do an internship, and then you will either go on to residency, or you'll go on to be what we call a general practitioner, which we could talk about later or answer that. Once you're done training, though, or if you have to go out as a general medical officer, if the military is using you in that capacity, that will be how you pay back the 7 years that you owe. So really, you get all of these benefits, free education, and you end up owing 7 years of service back to the country as a military physician. And so that may happen after residency, or if you take a break in between residency and internship, like I did, those 3 years where I was a flight surgeon, that was payback. So I paid back 3 years before I finished residency, and then I did my 4 years of residency, and then I paid back my other 4 years as a radiologist of the 7. So that's sort of how you pay back the time. but you're really paying back as a physician. So you're getting to do what you want to do anyway. So, I know it sounds like a long period of time, but it really goes fast. And especially as you're developing that experience as a young physician or an early physician right out of training, those 7 years really do go fast.
Dr. Liotta, do you have, once you finish your residency and then let's say you go through like 3 or 4 years of residency, now it's time to give back that 7 years obligation. Do you have any kind of say into or where you'd like to be stationed or be assigned to practice for a while?
For sure, definitely, yes. And so the way it works is, for example, when I graduated residency, they had 13 hospitals that needed radiologists. And so there were 13 of us graduating, and they said, all right, rank those 13 hospitals, 1 through 13, where you want to go. And so you were always able to give your input. And really the people who are getting that input are your colleagues. They're the more senior physicians in your specialty. And then they talk to what we call a detailer that says, okay, yes, this is how we're going to fill these billets. And so when I came out, literally most people got their first choice because if no one else wanted to go to that hospital, that's where you were going. And so it sort of was a fit unless there was an issue. And so a lot of times you'll get you'll see what's on the list, and if you have a preference, they will try to meet your preferences, and they'll always also try to meet. For example, if you're married to another service member, or you have, say, a family member who's sick, you need to be at a big military treatment facility that one of our big medical centers. They will actually put you in those areas to make sure that your son or daughter or loved one can get the care that they need on a regular basis. So yes, you do have input on that. Are there times when the military will tell you have to go somewhere that you didn't want to go? Yes. And
sure.
I mean, you have to be prepared for that. And in my case, even of those 13 hospitals, I got my 10th pick. But they really gave me the reasons why. And I had great leaders, and they knew, and at the end of that, though, they knew, Rob, hey, we're sending you. And my 10th pick was not a bad pick. I mean, I got sent to California. I'm from the East Coast. I'm from Cleveland, actually. Yeah. So it was, I wanted to stay on the East Coast. I didn't want to go to California. But I will tell you that getting to go out there for those 2 years was just a great gift. And I got to see the whole country. I got to live in California, which I never would have lived in. And what a beautiful state. Got to live by Yosemite and Sequoia and take my wife on dates to San Francisco. I mean, it was a life adventure that I'm so glad that I had. And it wasn't something I would have picked, though, in that regard.
Oh, wow. Well, I think what's good for people to hear that and to know that there is you do get some input, but there can be some times where you are assigned because of the needs that are necessary at that point in time.
Right.
One question I wanted to ask you, Dr. Liotta, is what if a student gets into the program and starts to feel like this is not for me? I mean, because it's a big commitment to do this. What happens then? Like, does that happen?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it does. I think it does. It doesn't happen very often, And in fact, literally, it happens so infrequently. I don't exactly have a good answer on what happened to them. Yeah. I'll be honest with you. It's not like we have like half the class leaving us. Right. In fact, it's a very low number. With it, I think each case is taken on a case by case basis, depending on when they're leaving and different things like that. Yeah. And each of the services. So the answer is that when you come here, you sign a contract, and so it's based off of like the reason for leaving and different things. And each of the services will handle that situation differently. Some people may have to pay back money, or depending on how far they are in a way. Some of them may have to pay back time as just what we call a medical service corps officer. You won't be in a physician status, but you may be a healthcare administrator or helping with the logistics and things of the military. They're all different answers. It's not a one-time answer. It just depends when someone decides to leave as well.
Okay. I just wanted to ask that. I just want people to think that like there's some extra layers to their training here that not a lot of people are washing out, if you will. Like they're not.
They're not washed out. They want to be physicians.
Right.
And I think, with it. One example that comes to mind is like an individual who was really doing great, but just it wasn't a fit medicine. But she got enrolled in our public health, we have the School of Public Health.
Okay.
So she's getting her master's in public health now, and she will serve as a medical service corps officer who will be like an epidemiologist or, but not as a physician, in that role. So it will be a case-by-case basis on how that works.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great. Last question before we move on to the application process is what kinds of careers do graduates of USU usually go on to have after fulfilling their obligations? Do you find that most of your colleagues as graduates are staying in the military medicine arena, or are they going on to work in hospitals and as other physicians, quote unquote, regularly do? Right.
So, really, our graduates are probably the majority. First and foremost, they're trained to be clinicians, and so they are going to be treating patients in the clinic. That's the goal of the school. It is the mission of the school is to basically train great clinicians who can care for those in harm's way. And so they will all practice in the military. 60% of our graduates will end up doing a 20-year career or longer, which is it's a significant statistic. Not because they have to, I think because they just enjoy the patients they're taking care of and the job opportunities and the way we practice medicine here in the military. They stay in. Yeah. That being said, while you are in the military, you can practice as a civilian as well. And so a vast majority of us, what we call moonlight. And so, yes, we work at Walter Reed, but as long as you have approval and it's not intruding on your duties at the hospital, your military duties, you can work a shift at the hospital across the street or the civilian hospitals. And so I think the vast majority of us do that. One, to just, be relevant in the civilian sector. It adds a little bit more money to the salary, and it also allows us when we are transitioning out to know, okay, what is private practice like compared to the military? Okay. So because you are a U.S. trained physician, you'll be an MD, and you'll have a medical license, and so you are able to use that how where your interests are. Yeah, I think some of our what's nice about our system, though, is it allows you to jump around and check things out. And so while you're in the military, you may spend all your time as a clinician. I'm in the clinic or I'm in the operating room, but you will have opportunities to jump out of that lane to either go into academia, where you can be a professor here at the Uniformed Services University, run a program at one of our teaching sites, be the program director for the general surgery or the psychiatry, residencies in those areas. So you have chances to get really into academic medicine. You have chances to go down routes to start doing research and to be, to do, hey, you know what, I'm going to, one of my buddies is an infectious disease doctor. He is a professor, where he's basically at San Diego. He trains fellows there, but then he took a 3-year tour down to South America, and he ran a lab down in South America doing infectious disease research, So you have these opportunities, and what's nice about them is if you find out, this isn't my cup of tea. I don't really, I don't want to keep doing this. You're not stuck with having to get a new license, transplant your family. The military will take you to your next assignment, and then you'll go, I want to go back to the hospital. I just want to be doing ID in the hospital. Okay. So you have these chances to sort of try things out. And then there's also the whole executive medicine route, which will allow you to, all right, do I want to get involved with, the hierarchy of the hospital? Do I want to command hospitals and run them and be an executive? Just like on the civilian side or on the military side, we need people to run our hospitals, and those are usually physicians. They are physicians that are running the hospitals. And what's unique about us is you have opportunities to actually also get involved with government and the policy side of things. And so I have colleagues who, take a 1-year fellowship to go work with Congress, and they do a legislative, fellowship where they wear a suit and they work on the Hill, and they work with healthcare policy and military policy and medical policy, and getting a sense, hey, do I like this? Is this an area that I want to continue to work or use my talents? So it really is open lots of different areas to do that. Wow, that's fascinating. How did you get rank of Navy commander? So So as you keep going up through the ranks, you go up for promotion boards, and you get promoted about every 5 to 6 years, or you at least go up for a promotion. As physicians, we promote very well. I mean, because we already come out as when you start, you're as the lowest level officer, but when you graduate, you automatically become what we call, there's several levels, like there's 10 levels of ranks. You come out as the third level rank, which is either a captain or a lieutenant. And then as you go up, a commander is the 5th level, a captain is the 6th level, admirals and generals start the 7th level. And so, and really, you will promote as a physician, as long as you are getting board certified, practicing medicine well, doing your job, you will make what we call the 4th level, majors or lieutenant commanders. And then it gets a little bit more selective as you make commander or captain, but they are, but not terribly hard. I mean, if you're doing your job and excelling at it, you will progress through the ranks, going all the way up to captain or commander, as a terminal rank. Or if you go on to command hospitals, you could be the next general or admirals that, which we have lots of alumni who have gone to those stages of their career.
Oh, that's great. Hey, I think we've talked a lot about what the unique and really interesting aspects of the school. And now people are like, okay, so I'm thinking about applying. Let's talk about your application process a little bit. You do the regular AMCAS application, right? And send secondaries out to people. Is that true? Okay. Right. So then
correct. In our second,
Go ahead.
Yeah, and our secondaries are free. We don't charge for them. And really, as soon as someone applies, we send secondaries to everyone. They don't get pre-screened. Okay. We just send out secondaries because we want the whole application to review. And so as soon as someone applies through AMCAS, as soon as it comes back, it gets processed through AMCAS to us, we'll send out the secondaries right away.
So when you then start to screen, I think we're all using the terms holistic review to evaluate our applicants. And I think we're all, for the most part, looking for some of the similar core attributes and applicants that we feel are necessary for them to be successful at our medical school, your medical school, and anybody else's. But given your mission at USU, what are some of those unique traits that you feel make for an attractive candidate to USU?
Right. All of the same things as other medical schools, but the things that we also focus on, I think, are one, a sense of community service. And so that plays a big role for us because we know the services, you're going to serve as a physician, but also you're going to serve as an officer. And so someone who is already giving of themselves really fits with our ethos and our culture here. And so we, those who serve or have a strong sense of community service is really looked favorably at our school. I think the other big area that we seriously look at is leadership potential, and how has someone demonstrated that prior to coming to us, and what is their leadership potential. And that's, it's not like, oh, hey, I'm putting this as I was the vice president or the president. It's more of, yes, those are named positions and things, but we're talking about, how do they describe how they are in groups? I'm a waitress or a waiter, but how am I as a waiter? How do I interact with that group? Am I a leader among them? Am I do I help train other people? We're trying to pull that out as, what kind of person are you? Are you someone who, who may be given a lot of responsibility and privileges? How will they run with that? And how will they end up, using that? Because our nation puts basically our nation puts a lot of trust in our officers and our physicians. And we want to see, how are they going to use that? How are they going to use that and as a leader, and how are they going to run with that?
Do you feel that applicants, if an applicant is listening to this and they say, I'm very interested, I'm considering applying, but as an undergrad, I didn't do ROTC, or I don't have experience in my family of anybody being in the military, are they seen as a quote disadvantage or a less attractive applicant than versus others that may have experience with military as an undergrad?
The answer emphatically is not at all. And and we purposely really shaped the class so that 60% of the class has no prior military experience. And so we want people who don't have any, because we want them to bring various backgrounds and diversity to our military, and then they're going to learn the military, and they're going to learn it here. But we will also have 30 to 40% of the class who have prior experience, and we want them in our class as well, because we want them to help shape the rest of the class, or to share their experiences. So we have people who have had diverse careers as prior submariners or prior pilots or prior medics, combat medics or corpsmen or linguists in the military, but they'll share those experiences with the rest of the class. And it's nice because you'll be in your fire team and you'll have an individual I had an Army Ranger. I came in through the Naval Academy, but never knew really the real, like, what is it like to be on a ship and to be a part of the real Navy or to be a part of the real Army. And it was nice to have like classmates who'd be like, oh yeah, this is what we did as Rangers, and this is how life was, and being able to bounce questions off of them and things like that. It's just a nice way. We know it fits our mission well, and it's a great way for the students to really to learn that and to become a part of that.
Yeah, that really adds to a nice dynamic. It sounds like to really enhance the learning environment there. Yeah.
Correct. And so we purposely look for that. So if someone has no prior military experience, not at all. In fact, we really look on their academic merits and their potential for leadership and their potential to be a great physician. And so there are plenty in our class. Some of our top students had no prior military experience, and they are, fully now understanding the military and the Navy. And really, even for me, no one in my family, except my grandfather served in World War II, we didn't really understand what a career in the military was like when I came in. My parents, I really had to teach them or talk to them about it, and they had a lot of questions when I was looking to come in. What aspects of your screening process do you like people to know about that kind of pull the curtain back a little bit when you're doing your screening? Is there anything in particular that you like say, hey, this is how we do it, or this is what I want people to know of how we do our screening process? Yeah, I mean, I think first and foremost, yes, we publish our averages, our average GPA and MCAT, but there are no cut lines. I mean, we do that holistic review. And so we will take the gamut of MCAT range. We'll take the gamut of GPAs, because we're looking at something special about each of the people we bring in. And so I would basically say we really, and our committee has really, really evolved over really the last 6 or 7 years, when we adopted this holistic approach, that they really are like, you know what, yes, they don't have the highest MCAT or they don't have the highest GPA, but this experience, or this is what they're going to bring to the class. And that plays a big role. I mean, and those are big discussions and big debates at the admissions committee table, but we really do those deep dives, on the application. So I think we're very good at that, and we take a lot of time at that to, most of the committees, like, where are those gems in that application pool that we don't want to miss? We really have that attitude.
Yeah. I mean, I think that and looking at the data that's, for instance, in the MSAR about your class composite over the last few years, you're not making this up. Like you are absolutely, being straightforward with the listeners, because even just looking at the age ranges, the majority of students in the previous class was in the 19 to 23 range, but you have more students in that 24 to 29 range, and the 30 to 39 range than I've seen at a lot of other institutions. Right. And that just adds to that diversity of the class. That's kind of that invisible diversity, not always the visible one, but that's a piece of invisible diversity that I'd like to call that age range there is really striking. And it's neat because you'll get, you'll have all of those different personalities in the class and in those fire teams. And it's really, it models our work system, or it models the world, that you're going to be working in. So it is effective. So since you have the capstone requirement, are you specifically kind of looking for some experience? And you don't have the capstone. It's not a requirement. It's an option. Yeah. I take that back. I apologize. But how do you value research? That's a common question that we get is if I don't have research, is that I've seen at a disadvantage because I don't have that background?
Yeah, great question on that. So specifically for us, research is a part of the admissions process, but we do not, if I would tell anyone if they didn't have a lot of research, it's the least important thing for us, because first and foremost, we're training clinicians, and so we like to see a little bit of research because I think all physicians use research or do dabble in research. And you need to be able to interpret the research and see how it will affect your practice and things like that. But our mission is not to produce physician scientists. I mean, that's not our primary mission. And so if someone has a lot of research, it certainly helps them. But if someone doesn't have, 500 to 1,000 hours of research, it is not going to prevent them from getting into our school. And some people may only have they did a senior 3-month or a semester research thesis, that it doesn't have to be extensive research experience, because that's not our main goal. So if someone has spent time doing other things that we're going to like in their application, we do accept people who have very little research experience into the class.
I'm glad you said that. And I think that means a lot coming from a clinician to say that it is important to have a little bit of research experience, because it applies to your training and your practice, and be able to analyze things and understand data and research and articles and all that stuff. But it's not the be all end all in a screening process. Let's say that you like what you see, and you invite the applicant to come to an interview day at USU. What's the interview day like? Walk us through what that experience can look like and feel like on that day.
Right. So you'll come over to, it'll be early. It starts early because we get you through security. So there's a lot of paperwork involved. But once you get here, we have you in early, and really the morning part of the day is as much about us, really letting you know what's unique about us, because we are so different. And so as much as I want to do the interviews right away for people to just get the nerves off, we feel it's important to give our interviewers or our interviewees a very, just to let them be relaxed in the morning and just hear a lot about us, which I think can help with their interviews, what's unique about our curriculum, what's unique about our mission. So we actually have them, they meet with me, they meet with our Dean of Student Affairs, they meet with our Commandant, which is the military side of the academic training here. And then they also get to visit our simulation center, which is off campus, and they go on a bus over there. And I tell them the morning is, they can relax, they're not getting evaluated, they're just, this is for us to show you who we are, and for them to decide, is this a place that they really want to come to? I mean, are we as much a fit for them as they are a fit for us? And then, so that's the whole morning. They will, and then we will provide lunch, and our students will come in and they will do a panel, and no one from admissions is there. I never even listen or hear what they're saying, but our students are just very honest with them. Here's what school's like. Here are the good, the bad, and the ugly, and talk to them about how they feel about the school during lunch, talking to them. And then those same students who are talking to them will take them on tours around the campus.
Yeah.
And then we don't start the interviews until 1 p.m. Are the first sets of interviews. And they do two 30-minute interviews, or 20 to 30-minute interviews. We try to give them ample time in between the interviews that they're not rushed at all. And it's really a one-on-one with a it's always a clinician or one of our fourth-year medical students. And they would never have two medical students. They would have one medical student and one of our faculty, or a faculty for the hospital. And those interviewers are not on the admissions committee. They write a report and an evaluation, but they do not sit on the admissions committee. And occasionally we have members of the admissions committee that do interviews, but if they do that, they have to recuse themselves from the, once that individual comes up to the committee, they recuse themselves from the process for it. But I think that interview, it's very laid back. It's us getting to know them, and they're allowed to, our applicants are able to ask a lot of questions. We decided not to do an MMI or multiple mini interviews because we just think it's too impersonal for our school. And we already feel like we can gain a lot of that information from what we already know in the application in that one-on-one interview. And we really want them to be a more personal feel to our interview process. And so I haven't added it, and I certainly will not replace the one-on-one interviews. If we do add it, it'll be a smaller MMI, but we want to have that personal feel with the applicants.
Well, couple quick questions about that. Okay, when you said you start early in the morning, how early is that?
So we start at 8 a.m., 0800.
Okay.
So, and they usually arrive like at 0730. Sometimes if they're all here by 0745, I will start the process at 745.
Okay. So let me just say, if anybody complains about that, you're going in the wrong career anyway.
True.
I mean, whether you're going to med school at USU or anywhere else and you become a physician, 8 o'clock is not that early.
Correct.
Every once in a while, I've heard some applicants complain about, your interview day starts at 8:15. Like, you do know you're going into medicine, right?
Correct. Yeah. If you're doing neurosurgery, maybe 0430.
Yeah, exactly. What about the interview structure? They're meeting with two people. What's the level of application access that the interviewers have? Do they have full access to the application, or are they blinded to certain components?
Yeah, they are blinded, so they do not have full access. So what they have access to your their AMCAS personal statement and their activities, as well as their USU secondary essays. Mm-hmm. So that is all they have access to. We purposely blind them to the grades, to the MCAT, and really all the demographic background information. That's all blinded. But we do give them, a glimpse of who they are from their personal statement, activities, and essays for us.
Oh, and that's plenty of information. That's a lot. I mean,
right.
For those that have not embarked on the application process yet, you have to detail a majority of your life history. And so the components that Dr. Liotta just said their interviewers have access to is quite a bit to get a good handle on who the person is sitting across from them in that conversation. What are some of your general kind of interview day tips for those coming to interview at USU? You said you want them to relax and be themselves. What other kind of tips do you have for them?
Yeah, I think a good preparation for our interview day, they really need to do a deep dive and just a really serious, that they've considered this, they've researched it, they've talked to people, to understand what is drawing them to medicine, but specifically for us, what is drawing them to military medicine and why? And it can't just be a superficial answer, or we want to really see that they've thought about this and they understand what they're getting into. And I think that's the key. It's probably one of the biggest things, because we have a lot of great applicants that many other medical schools will accept, but that we won't think is a good fit for us if they haven't really conveyed that to us, why they want to be a military physician. So I think that would be great. It's imperative. And whether or not they read about it, or if they know military physicians or people even in the military or family members, yes, you don't need to have that experience, but I think everyone can go and call or look or read or have an idea about it. And even their ideas don't have to be perfect, but the fact that they have really looked into it and they're giving us a genuine why, this is why they're drawn to this. I think is very, very important for our interviews. Probably one of the biggest things we assess out of it. And then the other two things that I think are important for them to think of, the applicants to think about, is we really are interested in them knowing themselves. So knowing their strengths and their weaknesses, and to be able to speak confidently and clearly and honestly about them, that they have that insight. And then also to their ability to talk about how they work with others, because for us, that's big in the leadership realm. And so being able to, talk examples and intelligently that you've really thought about, like if I'm in a group, or I'm in a group setting in school, if you're still in school and you're in a lab group, what am I? How am I in that group? What type of person am I? Am I the person who takes over and leads? Am I the person who's the great follower and follows the details? Who are you in that group, and how do you do that? Or how have you ever had struggles in those groups, and how did you deal with them, and how do you resolve them? Multiple questions can be answered from that, but that concept is we really will want to draw out your interpersonal strengths and weaknesses, and being able. And there's no right or wrong answer, but that someone understands where their strengths and weaknesses are.
Those are great. And I hope people really listen to that, and if not, go back and rewind and listen to that again, because what Dr. Liotta is saying there is very important to USU. But I think you can also apply this to other medical school traits too, the characteristics of things you're looking for, especially what you're saying about in small groups, like how do you lead, or are you a contributing follower? And I think that's important, because sometimes you're not always the leader, and you need people that are going to be a cooperative, quote unquote, follower in the group that's going to be, contributing. But just for that particular reason, you're not in charge that day or for that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely. It's exactly what we're looking for, or trying to get in understanding our applicants.
Because I think sometimes applicants think like they always need to project that I'm the one who takes charge and I'm going to be the one that leads the group. But it's okay to say like, hey, I know when it's appropriate, when I need to take charge, but it's also, I understand when I need to be a contributing member of the team. And even when I'm not in the lead position, and that's just as important as being the leader of the team for whatever that situation could be.
Exactly.
Hey, one thing I want to talk about, which I don't normally do, but I think it's important to touch on, is there's some unique things that happen when students matriculate at USU. I don't usually go into this with other medical schools, but I think it's important to kind of talk about what happens once a student matriculates at USU going forward.
Right. Going forward. So the unique thing about us is that we actually have an indoctrination period prior to starting your orientation at the medical school. You will have an indoctrination, or basically early training, orientation training with your respective service. And those are at different areas of the country. So if you come in as an Army student, you will basically do what was called direct DCC, which is direct commissioned I don't even remember that acronym, but it's DCC, Direct Commissioned Officers Training in Oklahoma. And you will go there for 4 to 5 weeks and get that training. And during that training, you learn how to wear the Army uniform, how to salute, you learn the traditions. So you feel comfortable wearing an Army uniform. You have to be indoctrinated into the service. It's not boot camp in the sense that you see on TV, or you think about people going to boot camp and getting, yelled at and run around you are already selected to be a physician. This is what we call it knife and fork school. We're teaching you how to wear a uniform, it means to wear a uniform, because there's great privilege and there's great honor bestowed on being an officer, and there's a lot expected of you. We want to make sure you understand that prior to coming here, because you are going to be commissioned. So you get to do the DCC for the Army. You'll go, which is Commissioned Officer Training, or COT for the Air Force, or ODS for the Navy. And those are in different areas. Alabama for the Air Force, you're going to go to Rhode Island for 4 to 5 weeks for the Navy. And that training is great because you're going to already start seeing your classmates. And you're also going to be seeing not only just USIS students there, but you're going to see dentists, lawyers, and other HPSP scholarship winners who are basically going to other schools and training elsewhere, but are going to be coming back into the military when they're done training. You're going to meet them, and you're going to establish friendships that you're going to see them 4 years later. You may be interns or residents with them. And so not only USIS classmates, but the camaraderie. You're starting your military family, I talk about it, is you're coming in and you're getting indoctrinated. And so that you'll do that for those 4 to 5 weeks. It usually starts as early as May for some individuals, but most of the classes start in June and July. Actually June. All of them this year are starting in June, and then they'll finish in July. And then you'll have a lot of time to actually come back to the Bethesda area, DC area, get your house ready, your housing set up, so that you're ready to start school and the academic orientation here at the university. Typically around August 1st is when we start that orientation.
Wow. Okay. Now I'm glad I asked that, because that is a very unique thing. I like that knife and fork school. That's really cool. So, Dr. Liotta, I tried to touch on, we did a really deep dive today and all the different aspects of your curriculum and the benefits and the screening process and interview day. Is there anything that you think we left untouched, or something you wanted to make sure that before we wind it down, that we get across to listeners?
Yeah, no, I think, really, it's the adventure of the military. I want to convey that there are a lot of opportunities. If you come and look into us, it's even hard in a short podcast like this to explain all the different opportunities that the military has to offer. So I would just say you can look at this. Whether or not you come to the Uniformed Services University, the health profession scholarships are also a phenomenal way to get those same opportunities, and where you can go to your local medical school, your state school, or your dream school, wherever that is. We want you to do those programs. And I think when I go out on the road or I talk to students, I say, if you're applying to USU, I hope you're applying to the health profession scholarships as well. So then you can find the right fit, whether or not we're the right fit for you or another medical school is. But I do think the uniqueness of the military and military medicine is a great opportunity. And whether or not you serve 4 years doing it or you end up doing a career, they are going to be experiences that will imprint on you, remain with you for a long time, and just it is a fun adventure, and that's the reason why I'm in this job.
Mm-hmm.
It's not hard for me to recruit. When I said I would go back in a heartbeat and do the same exact thing I did, these last 18 years have been fun, and it doesn't mean they haven't been hard, but
right.
They have been. I would go back and do those things again. All my service. Whether or not I was deployed or getting to work in the hospital or getting to treat these patients, it is a great adventure. And if that excites them, the adventure of these opportunities, then it's worth looking into military medicine.
Well, without question, I think I can hear your enthusiasm and pride oozing through my ears for the last about hour and 15 minutes about everything we've talked about. It's very genuine. The last thing I want to leave listeners with is, what kind of personal recommendations do you have for them? Any medically or non-medically related books you like, or something you're watching on Netflix, or things like that?
Yeah, I think, for me, actually one of the books which I just did with our whole unit, it's a book called Perfectly Yourself, Discovering God's Dream for You. And I'll be honest with you, he gives 7 to 9 principles to live by. Mm-hmm. And I think they're fantastic. And that's sort of why we did it as a group, and he talks about celebrating your successes, mm-hmm. looking at your passions and talents, and then seeing how you can those passions and talents are what you're good at. How do you then, you're driven there, you like these things, then how do you see how you can then use those in your life to do what you're meant to do? What is God's plan for you? And mm-hmm. usually those passions and talents coincide. And then how do you go then give that back? And so that book has been, I read it a few years ago, and I keep going back to it going, all right, celebrate our successes, keep moving, but at the same time, focusing on being the virtues and why are those ultimately good? And then simplifying your life, but then seeing where I can now use these talents in different directions. So that's one. I also love listening to podcasts by Jordan Peterson. So if you don't know him, I think he's fantastic in that regard. And then just from a military sense, I think obviously there are lots of things on the web and things like that to look at, but our dean wrote a book called Out of the Crucible, how the U.S. military transformed combat casualty care in Iraq and Afghanistan. We have it all over here. It's stories of what military physicians have done throughout this last conflict. And I think it's worth a read or a look at, or reading about, this is what you may end up doing. Not everyone's going to be in a combat situation. You may spend your whole career, here at the States as a pediatrician in a small hospital, or taking care of dependents. Sure. But you may be called to do that, and it should be in your mind. I am willing, and I expect that this is going to be called upon me. I would not come here thinking like, I hope that never happens to me. Yeah. It's more likely than not it will, but it may certainly not. But I think that's also a great book to just, get a sense of like what military physicians have been doing the last 18 to 20 years.
Wow.
Recently.
These are excellent suggestions. I'll put links to each one of these in the show notes and to the Health Profession Scholars website too. So if people want to go and spend a little more time reviewing what that looks like. So we really didn't touch on that today. That wasn't really the focus of our conversation. Right. But Dr. Liotta, I've taken up a lot of your time today. This has been incredibly educational and really inspiring. Thanks for sharing all your time with me today.
No, thank you for having us.
And I hope to be able to thank you in person someday at the next AAMC event or recruiting event. I want to bump into you and be sure to thank you and shake your hand again, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Hopefully in Cleveland as well.
Yeah, stop by, man. Hey, this is great. Hey, I'm going to let you go. Well, I'll see you around, Dr. Liotta. Thank you so much.
Bye now. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye. I don't know that there's any way we can possibly thank our veterans, service members, and their families for everything that they sacrifice for our freedom, but we have to try, right? Any day is a good day to thank a veteran and service member. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you to Dr. Liotta for the time he gave us today. And with that, we'll see you next time.